Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. I tell people this all the time, especially people that aren't into college football, that say to me after the national championship game, "What are you going to talk about now?" And I say, you don't understand. The offseason in some ways is actually busier than in season when you're just talking games. There is plenty to talk about. And with this transfer portal up and humming and running for these quarterbacks flying all over the country, boy, we've got a lot to talk about. And we focus, of course, on Miami with Cam Underwood from State of the U. Cam, how you doing tonight?
Man, I feel good. I feel strong. I got, some. Yeah, I mean, life is good. It's a Wednesday night, over halfway through the work week. I have some nice Underwood wine from Underwood Brewery up in Oregon, which is a real thing, and it's very good. So they're not paying me for it, but, hey, support the family brand, kind of thing. But I'm ready.
Underwood wine. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, no, they have a variety of stuff. But anyway, here to talk some football, and there's lots to talk about, like Mark is saying, in this offseason for Miami, because Manny Diaz plays 0 games, and I love it.
So I'm going to take your quote from just before we started to record, that this is what a Miami quarterback room is supposed to look like. Jaron Williams, N'Kosi Perry, voila, Tate Martell from Ohio State.
Yeah. So, Tate Martell is a former 5-star recruit, the class of 2017. He was 43-0 in high school at Bishop Gorman High School. They won like 2 or 3 mythical national championships, accumulated almost 10,000 total yards of offense, threw for like just short of 8,000, ran for over 2,000. Yeah, I mean, like, he was that dude. I mean, he's 5'11", 210 pounds. He's kind of in that Johnny Manziel, undersized, but runs around kind of, like, if you want to compare him to Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, any of your, like, less than 6 feet kind of shifty quarterbacks, but he's thick. Is at 2,010 pounds. You'd say not 2010, excuse me, 210 pounds. 2,010 pounds, that would be a record. But yeah, so I mean, he's a athletic kid. And everything. Went to Ohio State, was the #1 dual threat quarterback, top 40-ish player in the 2017 recruiting class. Announced late last night, that actually it was this morning. It was right at midnight, I want to say, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, that he announced he's coming to Miami as a transfer, and he's going to seek an immediate play waiver to be able to do that. And this would be the less advantageous thing for him, because obviously getting to Miami's campus and being integrated to spring practice and things like that would be good for him. But there was reports that Tate Martell was on pace to graduate in May from Ohio State. If you take your AP classes and pass them and things like that, you can come into college with credits already. So, that's how you can graduate in a couple of years. Being a redshirt freshman, that means he enrolled early. So he had a January term, summer term, fall, spring, summer, last fall. So you're already 6 semesters in, and this would be 7. So, even if you go for, 4 years and you're talking about, okay, well, whatever, I just go for 8 semesters. Tate Martell is coming into his 7th semester in college, technically, because, when you're at school, you for the summers, you usually take classes as an athlete, I should say. So that could be a way that he could get an immediate play waiver. But again, he's trying to get to Miami right now for the spring to work with Dan Enos and, the Miami Hurricanes, so he can, step into a starting job. But yeah, that's the new addition. And, he just adds to the talent in the quarterback room. Now, Miami did miss out on Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts wants to be like everybody else, Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, and he's going to the University of Oklahoma for his grad transfer, 4th year of playing and things like that. So, yeah, Miami has added Tate Martell to N'Kosi Perry, who was a 4-star recruit, record-breaking player in his own right in high school. Jaron Williams, also a 4-star recruit, record-breaking player the Adidas All-American game. Used to be the U.S. Army All-American game. Same thing, just they dropped the U.S. Army sponsorship. But he was in that game. And then you have Cade Weldon, son of an NFL player, former Heisman Trophy runner-up, Casey Weldon at Florida State. So now you start to have, 2 4-stars, a 5-star, and a pretty decent, caliber 3-star. This is what a Miami Hurricanes quarterback room should look like. And hopefully going away from this restrictive pro style into a hybrid spread, thing, pace and space. It might not even be that fast, but, really just kind of getting out from under center. Miami wasn't really going under center that much, except for an I formation to run fullback dive. But you get what I'm saying. You're changing the scheme up a little bit. So, you should be able to play to the skills of a Tate Martell who can run and throw, a N'Kosi Perry who can run and throw, a Jaron Williams who is very good and a very accurate passer. And, maybe you just have that version of the spread where you have a less mobile quarterback who can get the ball out there. But now you have options. You have realistic options. Now, I know that there is not really a proven player right now. And I know people are going to say that. But N'Kosi Perry flashed. He obviously came back in the Florida State game, threw 4 touchdowns in that and 0 interceptions. Tate Martell, I just retweeted a thing from Big Ten Network. He had a game where he went 10 for 10, threw for a touchdown, ran for a touchdown, things like that last year against Rutgers. So there is talent there. And hopefully with the scheme that fits that talent and top-level coaching from Dan Enos, then you can make that come alive. But, yeah, this is a big step forward because obviously Miami's quarterback position was among the worst in college football last year. I saw a stat that the only position or only school that had worse play from their quarterbacks statistically last year was Rutgers, the team that Tate Martell beat in that game I just talked about. And that was with the former Miami commit Archer Sikowski rotating with some other guys, and they're just substandard. But when you're talking about Miami and Rutgers in any kind of comparison, especially at the bottom of the entire list of quarterback play, that's pretty poor. So adding a Tate Martell, changing up the scheme, getting Dan Enos, that should be a good thing. Hopefully, Miami's able to pull in maybe a John Reese Plumlee in this recruiting class, a four-star, because he'd probably be a 3-star in a normal recruiting year because quarterback is quite atrocious in this recruiting class. But anyway, he could be a guy that you could add in to the recruiting or to the quarterback room as well. But yeah, adding in Tate Martell is a big get for Miami. Hopefully he's able to play right away in 2019. If he is, then I would think that going into this quarterback competition, he would be the odds-on favorite. But again, let the in the music world we call it tree shaking. You just kind of go and you shake the tree, and whatever falls to the bottom falls, but whatever stays to the top stays to the top. And, you call it that, the cream rise, whatever it is, but throw all of them out there, give everybody a fair shot and let them work it out. And if it ends up being Cade Weldon is the best guy and he ends up, being the quarterback and winning us games, cool. Like I'm not attached to any name, but being attached to quality players and players with talent and potential is a good thing for me. So yeah, adding Tate Martell is a big step for Miami, and I'm really excited to get him on campus and see what he can do.
Cam Underwood, State of the U, joins us on a regular basis to talk Miami football. A lot going on, and the quarterback situation will turn out, I believe, to be, if Martell is eligible, to be the most intriguing quarterback battle in the nation. I can't imagine another one because in all the other moves that have been made, Jalen Hurts to Oklahoma, he's the overwhelming favorite to win the job. Justin Fields to Ohio State, now that Martell is no longer there. Obviously, he would have to have a complete collapse not to win that job. Mm-hmm. There is an expected starter that's moving in from somewhere else. This is adding another, as you mentioned off the top, a guy that's unproven, has not played meaningful minutes. When he's come in, done the job. You mentioned the Rutgers game in particular, but Ohio State won that game, whatever it was, 56-7.
Right.
So you've got 3 guys that are extremely capable. Of course, N'Kosi Perry played about half the season last year, so he's got the most minutes, but you've got 3 guys that are relatively inexperienced battling for the same job.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're not going to rely on experience. You're not going to rely on maturity. Shout out to Mark Richt and Malik Rozier. You're going to rely on the guy who's going to go out there and do the job. And obviously through practice, through film study, through, off-season, 7-on-7 drills that, are player-led and, fall camp and things like that. You're going to have to find that guy. And, whoever it is, I'm with it. People are talking about, oh, well, Tate Martell, he's so talented, but he's brash and braggadocious. Have you met me? Have you seen the fact that, I wanted Lane Kiffin to be Miami's coach, and then I started the hashtag let's be jerks then? And you're going to talk about a kid who's, has bravado and openly is like a jerk on the field. I'm okay. Fine, let's be jerks. I don't need to be loved. I just want to go win. And if that is Tate Martell and that palpable personality, if that is N'Kosi Perry and his understated kind of introverted kind of thing, if it's Jaron Williams, who for all intents and purposes is pretty much kind of the neutral cyborg out of he's the Terminator of this group. He's not necessarily as braggadocious as Martell, and he's not as quiet as Perry. He just goes out and puts the ball on the money. Any of them, it could be even Cade Weldon, who wants to, have that linebacker mentality. He's like, dude, I'm 6'2", 230. I'm going to run over you. I'm not going to slide when I see Trajan Bandy or a cornerback on the outside. I'm going to lower his shoulder and put it in your chest. Any of those guys is fine for me as long as they're able to do the job. And at Miami, the last couple of years, we've not had guys, namely Malik Rozier, who are of Miami caliber to do the job. And then you go through this roundabout crap last year where you're really trying to fit N'Kosi Perry into this system and into this box that didn't utilize his talents well or things like that. I'm not here for that. So yeah, you're not going to rely on name. You're not going to rely on prior performance, and you're not going to, rely on maturity or, game experience. You're going to have somebody who goes out there and earns it, and you're going to have to trust them to move forward. So you're going to have potential and projection in the quarterback battle. But yeah, I think that, pending Tate Martell being eligible this year, yeah, this is one of the most intriguing and engaging quarterback battles in America, because again, college football is better when Miami is good. And if Miami has a good quarterback, Miami's going to be good.
Did I catch this right, Cam, that a Miami fan was criticizing Tate Martell's braggadocious ways? We're talking about Miami. This is the brand.
Hello.
This is the brand.
Do you not know who we are? That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I've had many a guy, and maybe it is the version or the portion of the fan base that really was connected with Mark Richt and everything. And I'm a God-fearing Christian. I'm not going to demean him for Mark Richt for his pious nature.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not going to do that, because I share a common faith with him. But it was just kind of that very conservative, I don't want to ruffle the boat, we're just kind of float by, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes or rub anybody the wrong way. We're Miami. Everybody loves to hate us. People don't watch our games to watch us win. They watch the games to hopefully see us lose if we're good. You know what I mean? That's who we are. We've been the bad boys. We've been the rebels, the outcasts. Miami is not a prestige program because of starting playing in 1843 like the University of Michigan and continuing to this day, starting in 1847 like Notre Dame and continuing to play to this day. Miami came in the 80s and kicked the door down of the establishment of college football. People don't like us. And that's cool. I've embraced that. So yeah, if you have a brash guy, dude, you got Cocaine Cowboys is a documentary by Billy Corbin about the cocaine trade here in South Florida. You talk about all these just the loud colors, and you can see South Beach with all the hotels and the neon lights, the gold chains, and that's who Miami should be. And yeah, I'm not here for people trying to just kind of fit in and be liked. I'm here to win games. And if it comes with, a choir boy, and I am one, obviously, having been a choir director for years, which I'm not even going to get on that.
That's funny. I never put those two things together.
Oh yeah. But if you want to get this a kind of introverted, quiet choir boy like a Ken Dorsey, who would never go out there and ruffle anybody's feathers because he's very soft-spoken from San Francisco and blah, blah, cool. Or you can go out there with a Tate Martell who's going to jump over you and spike the ball in your face or whatever. That's perfectly fine. But again, as long as I get somebody who can do the job, and obviously Miami's looking for that, that's the thing that's really going to tell the story of this season. So hopefully one of these guys steps up, and develops and moves forward so that Miami can really get back onto a national stage for winning games.
I got to say, based on what I've seen out of Malik Rozier, and I'll go beyond the 3-game losing streak to end 2017, even before that, because we talked about it week to week. Wow, that was a high wire act, etc. With the amount of athleticism and playmaking ability on the outside the numbers that he put up, if I remember correctly, about 3,400 yards, 26 touchdowns in 2017. A lot of that was obviously it was the playmaking ability of the Thomases and Berrios and Richards and all those guys getting the job done on the outside. If out of this 3-man quarterback room, again, assuming that Martell's eligible, that the best man isn't tons better than Rocher, I will be astonished if that's not the case.
Yeah, just because, I mean, I don't want to tap dance on his metaphorical football career grave or anything, but Malik Rozier wasn't that good. So, yeah, Miami should be taking a big step forward, regardless of who it is. Three out of the 3, 4, even if there's another transfer recruit, I don't care. But yeah, Miami should be finding increased performance at the quarterback position, and hopefully paying the dividends from that.
We get Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U, and the viewership is crossed over into triple digits. We've got 106 on the line right now. And what was that?
No, Jamaican air horn. Sorry.
Did we get a sound effect there?
We don't need
I should have those. There's a lot of stuff that I need to add. We'll go with sound effects at some point.
We're good.
But basically, I'm letting you guys know that Cam's laid down a lot of good analysis already. So what you need to do is obviously stay right with us for the rest of this conversation. But when it posts to YouTube, then you can check out the beginning of our discussion here on Tate Martell and the quarterback room at Miami. I'm going to keep using that term, quarterback room.
Yeah.
Jeff Thomas. Wow. Now, you were so disappointed. There have been about, I don't know, a handful of times since we've been doing these, and I think this is going back to like the end of the 2013 season that we've been talking Miami football, that we've had Cam on. It's been a great run. There's been a handful of times that I could tell something really got to you. Amon Richards and the end of his career. So some have crossed that line into life and affecting that person's career, their life. That's a whole other category. But even from a football standpoint, losing Jeff Thomas, I just saw you gushing about Jeff Thomas on a regular basis, and for good reason. And then once he left the fold, knowing that what issues there were from the coaching position and the quarterback position that probably led to that, I know that you were extremely disappointed. And now to be able to grab him back and bring him back home has to just feel great.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. It's had a couple of reversals to it and everything. And yeah, I mean, Jeff Thomas was averaging 30 yards a catch through September last year. I mean, like one of the most electric playmakers in college football. He's one of the fastest guys. He came onto the scene in the Under Armour All-American game a few years ago. And even before that, if you followed his high school career at East St. Louis, as a sophomore and a senior, he was just, everybody's All-American, had his, personal and academic issues as a junior. So he stepped away from the team that year before earning his way back onto the team as a high school senior. And we saw something like that here, just there were some rumors of some behind the scenes things and really kind of being disenfranchised and disappointed with some of the decisions of the staff and, things like that. And yeah, he said he was going to leave. And I mean, to already have lost Amon Richards to a career ending injury, which, again, I'm glad that he's going to be healthy for the rest of his life. But I mean, that one was one that really affected me. That one really, I felt that one. And, to then lose Jeff Thomas on top of that in the middle of the season, by the way, towards the end of November. Yeah. I mean, I was upset. I was in my feelings about it. And then, it was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go to Illinois, but then maybe I'll come back because Mark Richt is gone. And, that was a person with whom Jeff Thomas had some issues. Maybe also wide receivers coach Ron Dugans, who's not back either. So, okay, maybe I'm thinking about staying. And, he stayed in school so he could be eligible or, eventually graduate and things like that. He didn't just drop out. He left the team. So, people are posting, oh, he's around Coral Gables, and then I'm going to come back, and then I'm not. And then he told a beat writer for Illinois that, I'm just waiting on my transcripts. I'm going to be in Champaign in a couple days. And, you're hearing sourced reports or things about he's going to come back to Miami, and it's just up to the leadership council and to Manny Diaz. And then Manny started tweeting yesterday, and then, all of a sudden, boom, JT4 is back. And it's just, yeah, this whole kind of thing. But when you have a player of Jeff Thomas's caliber, getting him back onto the field or into the fold with the team is a big deal, especially, when you lose Amon Richards for his career. Lawrence Cager's already decided that he's going to transfer away from Miami. You lose Jeff Thomas on top of that, that would have been real attrition from the quarterback room. So, yeah, getting him back is a big thing. Yeah, and I mean, I'm very excited that it has come to pass in this kind of a way.
Got Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U. So you go directly from this conversation and you catch stateoftheu.com. If you love Miami athletics across the board, they got you covered. If you just love football, obviously that is the main sport. And even in the off season with all this going on, they will be on top of it. Any particular angles you guys have hit on here in the last few days?
Over on State of the U, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we're talking about everything, man. You know, like we've done a film breakdown of Tate Martell already. I wrote a piece saying that there was a report about Martell coming down, and then his welcome to the U piece. Justin DeTavio, our resident X's and O's guy, he broke down some film on him. He's also been breaking down film of the new coaches. So Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator, Dan Enos, the offensive coordinator. You know, we had the schedule get released today for 2019. So we're talking about that. Other, you know, commentary and analysis, talking about, you know, the offensive line. Got our 2018 season review and the State of the U awards up there. The recruiting rules are still up there. Our recruiting story stream for this year's national signing class is up there as I look on the front page. We have basketball coverage. We ranked the grad transfer QBs, but obviously we have one and not another from that. You know, we're going to go back and play a game at the site where the Orange Bowl once stood, except for it's going to be at Marlins Park, and FIU is going to be the home team. So that is kind of a somber occasion because I remember all of those games that I went to in college at the Orange Bowl, and then after college, including the finale, the final game of the Orange Bowl, that disgusting loss to Virginia. So all that and more. We always have stuff up on State of the U. So, you know, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, recruiting, even women's basketball we're getting into, things like that. We'll probably branch out a little bit into some tennis and other sports because that will be covered on the ACC network. We have a lot of stuff for you guys. So please come fan with us at State of the U.
141 watching. Thanks so much for joining us here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Cam Underwood, State of the U, joins us on a regular basis. So the last few times Cam's been on, we have dedicated this conversation for the Miami channel. If you like to see college football across the board, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And we got you covered, whatever your conference, whatever your team, especially the elite teams, obviously. All right, Cam, tons of recruiting stuff is in the live chat. And the one name that's being mentioned the most,
Chris Bogle,
is Chris Bogle. So do we know anything about him possibly leaning and giving us some cryptic messages?
All right, so let me go through things for those who are not on social media as heavy as I. So Manny Diaz is pretty much like the best head coach in football on social media because he cultivates his own content. He does his own account, was doing it as a coordinator, but now being the head man, you know, he's able to step that up. So he kind of precipitated everything with Tate Martell and Jeff Thomas yesterday by tweeting out some things, and then that kind of got things going. So we're kind of learning or being conditioned to, you know, look at his account, and if we see things, then we start to kind of piece things together. So basically, Manny Diaz took a screenshot on his Instagram story in the exact location that Chris Bogle sat to release his top 4 graphic thing. And he kind of was just like there, you know. Now, Chris Bogle committed to Alabama at the Adidas All-American game and is a, 6'4", 210-pound defensive end who goes to Cardinal Gibbons, which, again, is around the corner from my house. So he's the top player in Broward County right now in South Florida this cycle, and he's very good. Obviously, Miami could use a player of his caliber. So Manny Diaz tweeting that out, and people were starting to put things together about, okay, cool, if this is, that, and that kind of calculus, that timeline calculus, if you will. So now, as we've been recording, the thing that has really started to push, Chris Bogle said, okay, Miami is trying to get re-involved in my recruitment, even though I'm committed to Alabama. And he wants to, or Miami's pushing to get him to take a second official visit, which you can do under the new NCAA rule. If a program changes their head coach, you can go visit again and not use up one of your visits. So yeah, you can basically backtrack. So Miami's trying to get him to do that. But he's saying, okay, I'm all in with Alabama, boom, boom, boom. Like I said, during this recording right now, defensive coordinator Tosh Lupoy from the University of Alabama is reportedly going to go to the Cleveland Browns and coach their defensive line. So now probably the single best recruiter in college football who was recruiting Chris Bogle is going to be now stepping up to the NFL level. Obviously, now you still do have Craig Kuligowski there, who's probably one of the 2 or 3 best defensive line coaches in all of football, who's there at Alabama. Kuligowski is not a great recruiter, though. He's a great tactician and developer. So, the guy who really recruited me is not there, but the guy who's going to coach me is, maybe if I'm Chris Bogle. And he actually just tweeted Chris Bogle, that is. He said, don't DM me asking what's next. I don't know. #DND for do not disturb my phone. So that is like live. I just clicked over to my TweetDeck tab so I could see that personally. So all of that being said, Miami's been pushing. Miami's continuing to push, obviously wants to have a top-tier defensive end, another top-tier defensive end to rebuild that talent and depth on the defensive line. So, and Chris Bogle is the best option, and he's local to South Florida. Like, again, he goes to school not too far away from where I live. So, yeah, there is all of that. I'm not in a place where I've checked around with people where I can say anything past that, but that's kind of what's been going on in the last hour, 10 minutes even, regarding Chris Bogle. So yeah, people obviously are interested to see what happens with him, and with Tosh Lupoi leaving Alabama, maybe there's a sliver of a chance there, but we will see what happens.
Cam Underwood, State of the U, talking Miami football. Join him and the rest of the crew there at stateoftheu.com. Of course, football, baseball, basketball, women's basketball, all the other sports included there. So there seems to be a bit of a battle on the live chat concerning Tate Martell. Is it all hype, or bam? I've seen comparisons to Johnny Manziel and Lamar Jackson with a huge arm and all this other stuff. I will make the one statement concerning Tate Martell is that I keep pretty good track of Ohio State football, and Cam went down the qualifications coming out of high school. Those can't be denied. Certainly, let's understand that there's been a pecking order at Ohio State. Could Dwayne Haskins have been playing prior to 2018? I think we clearly saw in 2018 that, yes, maybe he was a little bit more talented, especially throwing the football downfield, than one JT Barrett, but they stayed in line in terms of the leadership and the pecking order. Tate Martell, in the time that he has shown at Ohio State, has played extremely well, and that the kid is extremely fast, and he has the arm skill to play and lead a top flight Power 5 team. He was sitting behind as well Joe Burrow, and we know what Joe Burrow did. He couldn't get playing time at Ohio State. He moves on to LSU, and I know that he didn't have a lights out year, but he played for a top 10 team, led them to some big victories. And let's keep in mind that Joe Burrow didn't get on campus and fully acclimated to his team until August. So he was really playing catch up, and I expect him to play even better next year. So by all indications, I think Tate Martell is an excellent quarterback. Not that he's going to win the job, because 3 very capable, talented guys are in play there. All right, let's see what else we have on the line. So we've got some other recruiting talk on here, and I was trying to catch up with what that was, and I got a little bit behind. Ask Cam if there's any news on Trevon Hill, the Virginia Tech defensive end transfer. He would start opposite Jonathan Garvin at D end.
Yeah, I saw that name today. I wasn't really able to look into it because I was kind of, in my little breaks at work and things, checking the timeline and things like that. I haven't even gotten to ask around or anything, or really kind of look into anything, read any of the reports, from the recruiting services, or anything on that. So he's a talented player. Obviously, I do know that, but I don't have any other knowledge to add other than I know who he is. And I know he's very talented, and we'll see what happens.
All right. The schedule. Anything else on the recruiting front that we haven't hit on?
Yeah, I mean, just really trying to move forward with these visits and things. So hopefully those come together very, very soon. There's going to be a couple. This week we have Bubba Bolden, who's the transfer safety from Southern California, who's coming in. He is another Bishop Gorman alum. So he was the same recruiting year in 2017 as Tate Martell. So high school teammates in 2017. Your 2018 alum was Brevin Jordan, the first team freshman All-American tight end. So there's 3 dudes from Bishop Gorman who are going to be on the team. And Bubba Bolden's coming down for his visit this weekend. Also, we have Jadarian Boykin from Jones County, Georgia. He's like a more athletic Trent Harris. He's 6'2", 235, defensive end, 4-star. He's like a top 300 player in the country. And obviously Jess Simpson being, a previously legendary head coach at Buford High School up in Buford, Georgia, was able to work some of those connections and get Jadarian Boykin to come down. John Reese Plumlee, who I mentioned earlier, he's a dual threat quarterback out of Hattiesburg, Oak Grove, in Mississippi. He is committed to Georgia, but obviously looking around a little bit because Georgia got a Michigan native 4-star quarterback to come down because they wanted to upgrade that position a little bit in this recruiting class because they were losing Justin Fields to Ohio State. So John Reese Plumlee is coming down as well this weekend. So there's going to be 2 high school official visits, 1 transfer visit. And then moving forward, the real big thing is, we got to see what these visits are moving forward. If we're able to get, all these guys that Miami's chasing, a Kyer Elam to come back down, a Martin Emerson, Jared Harrison Hunt, Mark Anthony Richards, Chris Bogle, maybe Octavius Brothers and Eugene Asante, so some linebackers. George Pickens is a Alabama recruit who Miami has kind of been pushing towards potentially coming down to take a visit. So, there are things afoot. So this weekend, well, probably not this weekend because there's already 2 scheduled, but the next 2 weekends. So that would be the 25th weekend and then February the 1st. So the last 2 weekends before signing day. Hopefully we'll see some additional names pop up as who we're going to visit. But yeah, Manny Diaz and staff are really trying to work hard to get some traction with some guys late in this cycle. So, hopefully these things happen, but we'll see.
Cam Underwood, State of the U, talking Miami football, and we are trying to collect, I am on the live chat, to some of the more frequent line of questioning before we look at Miami's schedule for 2019 that you can catch as I was running through State of the U, running through the Miami schedule, and you see about a paragraph, a description of what makes that game unique and why it's important and so forth and so on. So we'll get to the schedule in just a second, but we do have some questions, quite a few, concerning wide receiver and tight ends coach.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a big thing. Of course, those are the last 2 positions that are open on the staff. I don't know where we're going to go. I've asked a couple people, behind the scenes. I haven't heard back that much. As I sit here right now, and I posted this yesterday, I think maybe Miami should look at offensive analyst David Cooney as wide receivers coach. And he's a former high school coach from down here. He was the offensive coordinator at Miami Southridge. If you know that name, that's where DJ Scaife, the offensive lineman, and the wide receivers Mark Pope and D. Wiggins all played their high school ball. And then Cooney stepped up to the analyst position at Miami. And, after you get KJ Osborne to transfer in, and Cooney was the one behind that, and you get Jeff Thomas to stay, and Cooney was the one behind that, and he's worked with wide receivers his whole career. He's been, the quality control analyst, so kind of a off the field tangential coaching member. Look, if he's able to recruit like this, and he's actually pretty good at coaching, maybe you step him up to the big chair, or maybe move him to tight ends as well. I would say wide receivers just because he's worked with wide receivers more, including at the high school and collegiate levels. But maybe that's a thing where, Miami kind of stays in-house and gets up-and-coming dynamic coach and dynamic recruiter, from the grassroots area instead of reaching outside. So that's one area. And I know I've seen a couple people who did ask me that previously on, Twitter or through email and things like that. Maybe, hey, what about Cooney? What about Cooney? And at the time, a month ago, I said, nah, he has to kind of show something. Why would we do that? Dude, you got KJ Osborne and Jeff Thomas as your 2 commits, basically, in the last week. You can recruit. And Miami's put him out on the trail right now because we don't have a wide receivers coach. So that's a way that Miami could go with it. And there are probably other options as well. There's probably assistants in other places who are either employed or who, maybe their coach got fired and they lost a job, or you hire somebody away from somewhere else. So there's plenty of names and plenty of ways that this could go. I don't have a good feel for Manny Diaz and what he necessarily likes. And like I said last time, I told you that my personal thought was Manny Diaz was checking for leaks for when considering the offensive coordinator reports and sources and things like that. And I think that was borne out to be true because, I'm not going to diminish anybody and everything. And like, I do know these people, and even this one guy who put out the first report used to be a State of the U contributor and everything. And I have his phone number, and he's a good guy, but he doubled and tripled down on this report, and that ended up not being true. And it got to the point where Manny Diaz even went on the radio and said, hey, sources said we done hired 5 or 6 offensive coordinators. Y'all tell me what's good. So I say all that to say that even if I were to hear from a source or something like, oh, we're going to hire this guy as offense or wide receivers or tight ends coach, I wouldn't run with it, because I'm not sure if that's a plant. I'm not sure if Manny Diaz, wanted somebody to, was trying to snake out and see who, who connects with this person as a source, who, is leading in the wrong way or whatever. But yeah, so I think, really, we're going to see which way Manny Diaz wants to go when Manny Diaz makes an announcement that he's going that kind of a way. But I'm pretty sure that there are plenty of options around for wide receivers and tight ends coach. And hopefully, we settle on the right ones.
Going to let you guys know that if you leave something there in the live chat and then it's a few minutes later and I don't get to it, the live chat only gives me so much of a look, and therefore I can't go back to the complete beginning of the live chat. So I'm trying to get to as much as possible. We've got Cam for a limited amount of time, but of course we want to touch on the main topics. And so I'm trying to gather up the things that mean something to you. But our guy George, who, Cam, don't hold it against him. He is a Florida Gator through and through. But he's kind. He's kind. Okay. He's one of the level-headed ones. But he's a great. He is George. Unofficially, I have designated him as being the person to have commented to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, more than anyone. He has left me more comments than anyone. There's no question about it. So George is letting us know right here. We're now up to 270 people live online with us right this second.
I love it.
And we have 20 likes. So what George is pointing out to everyone is that you obviously enjoy the conversation that we have here with Cam in particular, and then also what I provide otherwise with college football. So you can help the channel by commenting, by liking, by subscribing. And I want to thank everyone out there, because I took some inventory the other day. So for the first 2 weeks, meaning 14 days of last year, we added about 65 subscribers. The first 2 weeks, 14 days of this year, we added over 700 subscribers.
Yo.
So we're growing.
I mean, exponential, like literally. Yeah, like at the root of the word, that's exponential growth. Yeah.
You've had a huge part in this, Cam.
Rock on.
There's no question about that. So I appreciate your help. And so just understand that I do this like an additional 40 hours in addition to the real job. So, I have certain aspirations here, so you can help out the cause. If you enjoy the conversation, even if you don't agree with me, like I say on a regular basis, even if you don't agree with me, if you're commenting all the time to me, as I see, we had over 9,000 comments last month, a lot of comments coming in. So even if you don't agree with me, I think you like what we're doing here. So please support us. All right. I'm off my soapbox. I don't do that very often. I don't solicit response very often, but every so often, I like to let people know, hey, you can contribute and help us out as well. People are talking offensive line, Cam. They want to know when you're going to have a good one.
Sheesh, who knows? Hopefully, the change of scheme is going to help the offensive line as much as, if not more than, the quarterback. Mark Richt wanted to be more smash mouth, even in coming from a shotgun kind of approach, and obviously was not able to recruit the guys to be able to do that, especially in years 1 and 2, or develop them for years 3 and 4. And I think that's why Manny Diaz decided, hey, we're going to go in a completely different direction with pretty much everything we're doing offensively. So, the hope and goal is that with, some prior 4-star talents and some guys who, teams all across America wanted, the new offensive line coach is able to coach them up. His name is hold on, what is his name? He worked with Dan Enos at Central Michigan. He also was an assistant offensive line coach in the NFL with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the last 4 or 5 years. So high-level coaching, has developed guys. He was tight ends coach when Eric Fisher was at Central Michigan and ended up being the first number 1 overall pick from the MAC conference. Eric Fisher started as a tight end So that's why I said that he had worked with Eric Fisher. He did not fully develop him, but was connected with that. And I'm scrolling and I cannot see this guy's name. What in Butch Berry? There it is. Thank you very much. Anyway, hopefully that happens very soon. And again, hopefully the scheme change, and also, coaches working together again. Dan Enos and Butch Berry, they have a real synergy, and they know what is required of the other. Well, specifically, Barry knows what his offensive line needs to do. So hopefully that will lead Miami to being back and having some road graders up front.
Talking Miami, and where you're talking schedule. So we'll get back to maybe some other comments. I don't know how much time Cam has. We have until 8:30, according to my schedule. What do you got here, Cam?
I have a glass of wine like y'all see in all the time in the world. So I'll go to 8:30.
Okay.
I'll push
Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's check out this schedule, because if it's always highlighted by the Florida State game. And then within the division, of course, whoever's going to be good next year, we would assume maybe Virginia Tech. Who knows who else it could be a challenge. Of course, the division winner this year was Pitt. But and then there's another game. There's another game that makes this a little bit different this year. So let's run down the schedule, and it starts with week 1, August, an August game, August 31st. Neutral site of sorts against Florida. So that really gets things going.
Exactly. I mean, that's, just like, again, last year we played LSU over in Arlington. I went out there to see my mom for a little bit and celebrate both of our birthdays, which are in August, and then went out to that game and, got our doors blown off, and everybody turned the game off pretty much at 33-3. But that's in the past. So, yeah, this year, August the 31st, and with that Saturday being, the 31st, you have an extra week in the schedule. That's why teams have 2 bye weeks this year, because there's 15 weeks, I believe, or 14 in the regular season instead of 13. So, yeah, against Florida in Orlando, which is a de facto home game for them because Gainesville is right up the road. So I know it's a neutral site, but it's really not. It's a home game for the Gators, and Miami's going to be on the road either way for that. But, yeah. That is, a traditional rivalry game. Florida, finally decided that they weren't going to be punks anymore and avoid Miami, and decided that they were going to put us back on the schedule. Obviously, they decided, oh, hey, it has to be in our backyard to make it viable, which, hey, fine, whatever. But we'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime. So if Florida wants to play in Orlando, great. That's going to kick off our season, which means that we and them and Florida State all play each other. So we have that Florida Cup where, all the teams play. So we play Florida first, Florida State later. Florida plays us first, and then Florida State last, and then Florida State plays us in the middle, and then Florida last. So everybody plays everybody, and obviously that's going to be a huge game. They're going to be a top 10 ranked team. Miami is not going to be a top 10 ranked team. And obviously the passions run deep because it's Miami and Florida. So, yeah, that's going to be a big marquee game, August the 31st up in Orlando to get the season started. And I, for one, am ready. And I believe it's 227 days from now that game happens. So let's get it.
So when I look at ACC scheduling, the first things that I look at, for any team, it's always interesting to see who they play out of conference. So obviously the Florida game is the game out of conference for the season.
Right.
It's interesting that the ACC season gets underway the very next week. So for any team in the ACC, they play 8 conference games. Therefore, they play 4 non-conference games. So typically those are stacked at the beginning of the season. But Miami dives right into ACC play against Mac Brown at North Carolina week 2 before their later non-conference games in week 3 and 4 against Bethune-Cookman and Central Michigan, and a later game against, you mentioned it, FIU. Did I hear this right? That's going to be played at the baseball stadium.
Yeah, it's going to be played at Marlins Park, which now stands on the site where the Orange Bowl, Miami's iconic former home stadium, once stood. So, literally in that exact same spot where, everybody went. You had, what was that, Super Bowl III with, or not Super Bowl III, but that AFC Championship game with Kellen Winslow.
Absolutely, 1981.
Exactly, 1981. Great year I was born.
It was Super Bowl III as well. That was the first 2 Super Bowls. The second Super Bowl was played in Miami as well, but Super Bowl III was Broadway Joe.
Yeah.
Jets win.
Right.
Yeah.
So all of those things and more, the Miami's iconic home winning streak and all these different kind of things. Yeah. So in that exact same place, in that exact same location, now stands Marlins Park. And the city of Miami owned the Orange Bowl, and they said they didn't want to do the upgrades needed to make it modern, and they tore it down, and they, went through this whole thing. And Miami residents and natives, they gave like these big tax breaks and this public money to build this stadium and all this stuff, which you can read about. Like I'm not a South Florida native, so it doesn't hit me the same way. I'm a Miami alum, so it hits me in that kind of a way. But yeah, Miami and FIU is going to be played at the baseball stadium at Marlins Park on November the 23rd. So that is the next to last, the penultimate week of the football schedule. So the week before Thanksgiving again. And, with 14 weeks, not 13, that's why that'll happen. It'll be sufficiently late where, baseball season is over anyway, and the Marlins season is going to be over pretty much way before that. So the site and location is going to be available. But that's kind of where it goes with it. So since that game is going to be next to last on the schedule, then you have an opening earlier. So it said, cool, Miami at North Carolina, September 7th, week 2. So that'll be an interesting game. Mac Brown returning to the sidelines after almost a decade in the booth with ESPN. Bethune-Cookman, week 3. That's going to be your HBCU sacrificial lamb. It's going to be a pretty full Hard Rock Stadium because there are a lot of players on Bethune-Cookman's roster who are from South Florida, and a lot of alumni from Bethune-Cookman who live in South Florida and are from South Florida. And the Bethune-Cookman Wildcat Marching Band is one of the best around in the world of HBCU bands. So people come out for that. Like they do for any HBCU kind of game. If you are from Florida and know of the Florida Classic, which is Bethune-Cookman versus FAMU, obviously that halftime in the 5th quarter after the game when the bands play against each other is a huge kind of involvement and engagement there. So having that. And then Central Michigan comes down and their new coach, Jim McElwain, who formerly from the University of Florida. All that in September. Then you got a bye week, the last week of September. So 4 games in a bye. That's right in the middle of a 5-game homestand. So weeks 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8 are all home games in a row. So that's Bethune-Cookman, Central Michigan, a bye week, Virginia Tech, Virginia on a Friday night, and then Georgia Tech, 5 home games in a row. Which is, it's nice, to be able to have that. But then that means that 4 of your last 5 are going to be away, even though one of those is it's away at Marlins Park. So it's still local. So 3 real away games. It kind of sets up in an interesting kind of a way. And just as an aside, Miami always does good ratings on ESPN's Thursday Night Football. Miami is also one of the most successful winning teams on ESPN's Thursday Night Football. I am very surprised that there is no Miami Hurricanes Thursday Night Football game this year. There is the Friday night game, which is the same that Boston College was last year, was a Friday night game, but Miami had a Thursday and a Friday. Maybe it's part and parcel of being 7-6 and coming off of, a not stellar season. Maybe Miami will return to having a Thursday night game in 2020. I usually like those just because it's a little different. You still get that midweek spotlight kind of spot. And again, Miami does good ratings for ESPN. So you're getting viewers on a Thursday night because Miami has a national brand and Miami wins games on Thursday night. So let's do that. I was intrigued to see that Miami does not have a Thursday night game, but I think that in the future that's going to come back to the schedule. So we are through all of that all the way almost until November 2nd.
In scanning just some of the other ACC schedules, so there's and the ACC, I would be willing to bet plays more Thursday night games than any of the other Power 5 conferences by far. Pitt plays North Carolina on a Thursday. There's a Georgia Tech NC State game on a Thursday. There's a North Carolina Wake Forest game on a Thursday. And I just looked at 3 schedules. Those are the 3 schedules I looked at, and all 3 of those other teams had at least one Thursday night game. So this is what comes to mind, Cam, when I look at anybody's schedule is, first of all, the non-conference games. So we touched on that. It's also the Big 12 is the only conference that plays a pure schedule in regards to everyone plays everyone. So you don't really need to look at, it's just a matter of where you play them and when do you play them. You play everyone.
Right.
But otherwise, there is a large discrepancy of strength of schedule within the conference.
Facts.
In the Big Ten, the ACC, the SEC, and the Pac-12, and especially in the ACC and the SEC, because you've got 14 team leagues playing only 8 conference games. So you're missing 5 teams. Now, the formula in the SEC and the ACC is rather simple. You play everyone in your division. You've got your crossover rival for Miami. That's, of course, Florida State, which is a disadvantage. I know Miami wouldn't have it any other way, but is typically a disadvantage because Florida State has been the best team in the conference for years and years and years. And even after Clemson took over, was the usually second best team in the conference over the last 5 years. So that's a disadvantage to Miami having to play Florida State. So I always look at who else do they have to play, because that rotates. Well, that comes up pretty well for the Canes this year. It's Louisville, who was by far the worst team in the conference last year. And the other thing that comes to mind in looking at the schedule that seems to be different than typical years is that Virginia Tech typically is a November game, like a first, second, third week in November game, trying to set the stage for what is typically a main game to decide the division. Florida State's a late season game that is typically a September game or early October game.
Yeah, Florida State's usually the first weekend in October-ish, somewhere in there. So yeah, that has been inverted, like pretty much flipped. So Virginia Tech is at Miami, so it's a home game for the Canes on October the 5th, and then at Florida State is November the 2nd. So that is a little bit later. It's week number 10, or game number 10 and week 10. Game number 9, week number 10, excuse me, for the Canes to head up to Tallahassee. So obviously that is the biggest game on the schedule. And I mean, it's kind of co-biggest games this year since we play Florida. So August 31st and November 2nd. The weekend before Florida State, Miami travels to Pittsburgh. So that's October 26th at Pittsburgh, and then on the road again to Florida State the next week before hosting Louisville, on November the 9th. And then the second bye week. And then you end with the road game at Marlins Park, which is closer to Miami's campus than FIU's campus, but I digress. And then at Duke, the last week of the season. And I tweeted this out and I said, I love that the ACC stopped trying to make fetch happen. Shout out to Mean Girls, the movie, by not having Miami and Pittsburgh the last week of the year, because they were trying to push that for years and say, oh, this is going to be our final week matchup. This is going to be the thing. It's going to become a thing. It was kind of like, who was it? Central Florida and Connecticut. And Connecticut tried to make that conflict or whatever trophy, and with the FL and the CT for the states, capitalized. And Central Florida was like, nah, like we're just playing a game, whatever. But yeah, I love that they stopped trying to make a thing happen. Like it's not a thing. Like Miami and Pittsburgh, like we played, yeah, sure, in the Big East days and now in the ACC days, but it's not like a rivalry. It's not Florida State or Florida or anything like that. So yeah, switch that around. So travel to Duke on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. For the last game of the year. So yeah, that second half of the season, weeks 9 through 14, you have at Pittsburgh, at Florida State, home against Louisville. And we don't know what Louisville's going to be like because they have a new coach, Scott Satterfield, who used to be at Appalachian State, coming down, obviously building a staff, rebuilding that program and things like that. So we'll see what happens there. There's a bye week on November 16th. Then you're against FIU at Marlins Park on the 23rd and at Duke on the 30th. So, it's an interesting kind of a schedule. It is interesting because there are 4 first-year coaches on the schedule as well. That's North Carolina with Mac Brown. That is Georgia Tech with Jeff Collins. That is Louisville with Scott Satterfield. And Central Michigan with Jim McElwain. There it is. That's the 4th one. So, yeah, 4 first-year coaches. And Miami has a first-year coach and first-time head coach on top of that. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to see a third of the schedule has new coaches. So obviously there might not be the carryover from previous years, things like that, where you can just say, okay, cool. We already know what to expect. And I will say, I am so glad to not have to see that 1873 wishbone veer option offense from Georgia Tech anymore. Like it's gone. And, for the defensive linemen, I'm happy for them because you're dealing with these cut blocks all the time and just everything. Like, yeah, I mean, Jeff Collins is probably going to have a couple years to change everything over because you recruit guys of a specific skill set to fit that offense. You know what I mean? So like to change it from what it was schematically to what it could be at Georgia Tech is probably going to take a little bit of time. But yeah, you're going to have, like I said, 4 new head coaches on the schedule, a front-heavy home schedule, including that 5-game homestand with a bye week in between. So you're talking what? So you're on the road in week 2, and you're not on the road again until week 9. So you have 7 weeks in a row where they're either having a home game, 6 weeks in a row before you leave, or either you have a home game or a bye week. That's pretty advantageous before having a road heavy back half of the schedule. So, I think things line up for Miami well, but again, Miami is a 7-6 team. Miami is an average team right now, and your record is who you are until you have the ability to step on the field and prove otherwise. So, I'm not going to sit here like last year and say, hey, Miami's going to be favored in every game and we should win 12 or 11 games or something like that. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I'm hopeful. I'm excited to see what's going to happen, but that is the schedule. The home schedule is a little weaker than you would like, obviously, with no Florida State coming down. But, I mean, if Virginia and Virginia Tech back-to-back weeks, cool. But, I mean, outside of Virginia Tech and maybe Louisville, and I mean, maybe we'll see what happens with Virginia and Georgia Tech. But yeah, the home schedule for season ticket holders and local Miami fans is not as enticing and engaging as, it could be. But, hopefully if Miami's winning games, then people will still be coming out.
Okay, Cam, you've hit on the game that is screaming at me as a sneaky, huge matchup. Okay. And that's Friday night. You already hit on Friday night in the absence of a Thursday night game. And Virginia, for as much as that was a disappointing game for Miami to lose and snickering, thinking we shouldn't lose to those guys, and you shouldn't.
Exactly.
Man, Bronco Mendenhall can coach, and he's building something there. And they took a 7-5 SEC team, South Carolina, to the woodshed in that bowl game, 28-0. Mm-hmm. They're getting a lot better.
Bring it on. Like, I mean, Miami turned the ball over 4 times that game. Obviously,
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying, like, that was when Mark Richt decided, hey, against better judgment and any kind of rational thought, we're going to put Malik Rozier back out here and stunt the development of N'Kosi Perry, who's clearly the far superior player on physical ability and talent. That came back to bite them and things like that. And I believe after that game was the game when Jeff Thomas quit also. But yeah, I mean, it just, it's a thing. 2019 is going to be another revenge tour season. And 2017 was a revenge tour season after 2016, again, with a 4-game losing streak and, losing to some teams that Miami should not have lost to. But yeah, that game right there, that Friday night. So it's a little bit of a short week. Coming on October the 11th, again, that Friday, not Saturday, in between the Techs. So Virginia Tech is the week before and Georgia Tech is the week after. Yeah, I mean, that's a sneaky game. But again, Miami does not have the cachet or the ability to overlook anybody. So every game is a big game. Every game we have to lend our full attention. And if and when the scoreboard dictates that we can ease off the gas or we can kind of assume the result, then we'll do that. But as I sit here right now, again, you got to show and prove, and all that goodwill and all that kind of cachet and all, the benefit of the doubt that you grew through that 10-game winning streak in 2017, all that's gone. It's a new staff. It's a new coach. It's a new scheme on offense. We got new players because we have, 3- and 4-year contributors who are either, transferring away or have graduated. Yeah. So, I mean, that is a game that I'm looking at, but then again, every game I'm looking at, but the 2 games again, August the 31st, Orlando against Florida. November the 2nd, Tallahassee at Florida State. Those are the games. Those are the things that around which everything else gravitates in the schedule. So that's where you have to start and build out from there. But yeah, every game is a game that Miami has to focus on.
Christopher points out in the chat that while it's a 26-23 series all time with Florida, the Canes have won 12 of the last 16 matchups.
Yep. I mean, like, Miami's been dominant. I mean, if you're a 35-year-old person, you've seen Florida beat Miami once in your lifetime. And that was the Tim Tebow year. What was that, 09?
That was last year. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So that was Tim Tebow's senior year. Miami started Robert Marv, who was a redshirt freshman, and then rotated in Ja'Cory Harris, who was a true freshman, I believe, in that game, or sophomores in that year. But I mean, yeah, that was it. That was the one. So yeah, I mean, it's been a lopsided kind of thing for in Miami's favor over the last 30, 35 years of that matchup. You can go back to 2000 and this what was that? The Bourbon Street Beatdown. Yeah.
Sugar Bowl.
The Sugar Bowl. So we whooped them on the street, literally. And you can see, if you go back and look at the video, you can see Alex Brown with his big black eye because he caught those hands. And then, we beat them on the field. And then also the next year, the Devin Hester return year, the comeback with Brock Berlin and everything. So it has been very lopsided in Miami's favor recently, which also means that Miami has to bring it, because these Gator people have been waiting for a long time to have something to talk about in a positive light over Miami. And going into that game, it seems as though, I would say right now, Florida would be like a 10.5, 11.5 point favorite after today, almost 2 touchdowns. I mean, you have a top 10 team versus unranked team, a team with a, solid defense and a developing offense versus, a Miami team with a good defense and an atrocious offense from the last time that you saw. I would think it would be pretty lopsided. So for a Florida fan, yeah, you're hoping that actually bears itself to be true. But, even with other games, like the last time that they played down at it was Landshark Stadium at the time, Miami was victorious, and that was with Driscoll at quarterback for Florida and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's a big game. And obviously, yeah, Miami does have the series lead and everything, but it's going to come down to August 31st. So I hope that continues, and I really want to see in 227 days that continue for the Miami Hurricanes against the Florida Gators.
So I do remember that last matchup. Yeah, 21-16, week 2. That Florida team was coming off a 10-11-1 regular season. They lost to Louisville in the Sugar Bowl. Then they just collapsed that year. They went 4-8. You guys went 9-4. You played Louisville, ironically, in the Russell Athletic Bowl and lost to Teddy Bridgewater and company. Yeah, it was pretty ugly, 36-9. I remember that game as well. Someone had pointed out in the chat, so I double checked it. So Tebow's last year, was 2009. That Florida team lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game. They still finished like top 3-4 in the nation after winning the Sugar Bowl. But you guys lost to them in 2008, and that was a great Florida team. They won the national championship that year.
Okay. So, yeah, it was the 2008 team. So it was the freshman year then for Harris. Yeah, because of the 2008 recruiting class from Miami Northwestern. Duh. So we lost to them in 2008 and didn't play them in 2009, but then played them also, and they got it. Okay, yeah. So I was close with that.
Oh, yeah. He is Cam Underwood, State of the U. It's great Miami talk with him as much as we can track him down. And so we will certainly have plenty to talk about next week. Is there anything we want to hit on, Cam?
Man, just really kind of waiting to see the finalization of Manny Diaz's offensive coaching staff with wide receivers and tight ends coaches, because those are the 2 remaining slots that are open. Obviously, we have, just to look at the future. So to see, what are some of these coaches about and where do they come from and things like that. Eric Hickson is the running backs coach. He was a star at Fort Lauderdale, Dillard High School back in the 80s and 90s, He went to Kansas State University, was their all-time leading rusher, came back. He coached at American Heritage. If you know Sony Michel, 5-star All-American, went to Georgia, first-round NFL draft pick, New England Patriots. Eric Hickson was his high school coach, his position coach, before then stepping up to the college level at Akron and Kansas State, his alma mater, coaching running backs there before now coming back to Miami. So, yeah, just looking at all those guys and things, talking about recruiting, looking at some of the X's and O's and some of the things that Dan Enos has used before, some of the things that could fit some of the strengths of the players on the roster and all kinds of different things like that. So, we try to be pretty comprehensive with our football coverage. Also, we have our season review and State of the U awards, which I have a couple pieces I need to write. But, when Manny Diaz has all the action happening with transfers and coaching hires and things like that, I kind of had to put those things in the back burner. But yeah, we have a lot of content for you guys, so please come over to State of the U and check it out.
Wasn't something that really hit me until I scaled through the scores that we talked about against Florida. But I guess you can give that at least to Al Golden. At least he beat the Gators.
That was his high watermark. Like that was as good as it got. There was that 3-point overtime win against Nebraska where Miami was up by like 3 touchdowns and almost gave that game away. But yeah, no, that was it. That was the mountaintop for him. So I remember that the last play of that game, there was a strip sack and there was a holding penalty. So there was a runoff of time, and Al Golden, you know, in his shirt and tie comes sprinting off the sideline. Like, yo, I'm going to shake this dude's hand and leave right now. I don't want to give them a chance to look back at it. Like, yo, let's go. But yeah, no, that was as good as it got. And, you know, I think I wrote it either the next year, I want to say. But yeah, I said, you know, basically the best that we could look for from Al Golden was to be competitive with Florida State, like not getting blown out. Like you lose by a touchdown, that's a win in terms of where the program was, because you're not going to get any better than that. But yeah, if you're looking for, you know, and because Florida was ranked at the time, Al Golden did not beat a team that ended the year ranked or things like he in his entire tenure. That never happened. But yeah, if you're looking at you know, back in the rearview mirror for Al Golden's tenure in Coral Gables, that win against Florida that year is the high point. And everything else is kind of downhill from there.
All right. Administrative work right here. So we topped out over 280 watching. We're still around 265. So if you want to see the individual segments, so let's say you missed half this conversation. So the Tate Martell stuff is hot, of course, Jeff Thomas, all that stuff Cam addressed at the beginning of the conversation. So this will post right here. You can catch the entire 90 minutes or whatever it turned out to be, or you can catch the individual segments over at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And if you love other college football teams, or you just want to keep track of the Clemsons and Florida States and all the other teams that you want to keep track of, then you subscribe at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football as well. One other comment I'll hit, since I do have you for about 10 minutes. Ethan Adkisson is making comments here, Cam, about the issues of the stadium location hurting attendance. I don't know that there's even a question there. Just address that situation.
I don't think that it really does. There's just so many things to do in South Florida. If you remember back even when I was in college in 2000 and 01, like Miami didn't sell out the Orange Bowl for every game. I mean, just because there's so much to do. Miami is an event city. If there is an event, if it's a Florida State game, if it's a Notre Dame, if it's the Virginia Tech, 8 o'clock Saturday night game, the city's going to come out for that. People are going to come out for that. There's going to be sufficient attendance. Miami does play at an NFL stadium. Miami has a good, size stadium and does pretty well with the attendance. So I don't think that it's hurt. I mean, it's not cavernous like when Al Golden was coaching, and you remember that iconic blimp shot in the third quarter or fourth quarter of that Clemson game when you could literally count the people in all those orange seats, which I was in the press box that day and I counted people in sections because it was just, touchdown Clemson. That was my tweet. And I just went back. It's not like that. It's not a barren wasteland or anything. Could it be more? Probably. But I mean, I think it's the best location possible. Miami's never going to get an on-campus stadium. I know that for a fact. It's been pretty much passed down from generation to generation of Coral Gables City Commission that they will never zone for an on-campus stadium in Coral Gables. People have said, Tropical Park or things like that. It's just not feasible. So Miami plays at one of the best stadiums in football, and it does happen to be a little bit of a drive away. So, I mean, yeah, would more people go? Would more local people from Dade County go if it were in Dade County or on campus or closer? Yeah. Is it an issue, the stadium being in Miami Gardens versus Coral Gables to the point where it's problematic? No. So, I mean, people are going to feel how they feel about it, but I've built a bridge and gotten over that a long time ago.
Justin says that you sold out or came close to selling out to most of the 2017 games when you went 10-3.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You go 10-0 and then, you didn't lose a home game. I mean, yeah, you lost the bowl game at home. But yeah, I mean, if you win, then people come out. Even if you look at the Miami Heat, yeah, they're probably doing 80-85% attendance right now. But when LeBron James was down here and I was going to games all the time and I knew people who were in the service industry and they're like, yo, I'm calling in favors, I'm getting tickets. That was the hardest ticket to get anywhere. You know what I mean? So, like, if you win, people will be there. I remember even when the Miami Marlins, when I was in college in 03, won the World Series. Yo, and they had 85,000 seats at that stadium when it was configured for baseball. And I mean, you couldn't get one. So it's one of those things. If you win, people are going to be there. So, hopefully, obviously, if Miami wins this upcoming season, then, more people are going to be there. But, again, this is kind of going back to the original conversation about Tate Martell and being jerks and not necessarily, and being comfortable in your own skin and not worrying about what other people think. I'm going to be there. This is my alma mater. This is my team. I bleed this orange and green. This you right here. I'm going to be there. I know so many other people who are going to be there. I can name names: Ricky, Yayo, Peter Ariz, Edit, James, Spade. I can name FIU Mike, who's a Miami fan, but he goes to FIU for his law school. So we all call him FIU Mike. I can name all kinds of other people who are there every single week. Laz, Q, Roman, Scoop. There's all kinds of people who are going to be there. So you know what? If you're going to be there, then enjoy it. And if there are people who are not going to be there, then tell them what they missed. But you can't really worry about the fact that the attendance was 65,327 instead of 78,428 like it was for Notre Dame. I don't care. I'm going to be there. I'm going to enjoy. I'm going to root for my team and be there in person. And hopefully you guys are too. And, if you really take that look at it, you live in the moment and you enjoy what you're doing and you stop focusing on what other people say or think or do or don't do by not coming to the games, then I think that you're going to have a better enjoyable experience. And hopefully, again, Miami gives you that enjoyable experience by getting back to winning games in a big way.
All right, Cam, of course, we've got a few people that are sensing that this is coming to a close and won't let it go. So they've thrown out a number of people right here at the wire, the name of Hazelwood. Jalen Hazelwood.
I want to talk about what Jaden Hazelwood said. Fine. Jaden Hazelwood, the nation's #1 wide receiver, 5-star All-American, #3 overall recruit in the 2019 recruiting class, was considering Miami for a time and went on social media and had a video where he was talking about the fact that he wasn't going to come to Miami because players there didn't care about football. They had no passion. They had no intensity or integrity. They didn't care about losing. They were unaffected by it. They just did not have that kind of personality that he wanted to be around. And hey, if that's his opinion, that's fine. And again, especially for an offensive player from last season, I don't necessarily think that he's off base. When you have players, again, who came out after the bowl game, offensive and defensive, and said the locker room was fractured. Defense started to resent the offense because the offense wasn't doing anything while the defense was championship caliber. And I know that there's a couple of people who say it wasn't championship caliber because look at the points you give up. Well, it's a synergistic kind of thing. The right hand has to wash the left hand. So the offense continues to go 3 and out or turn the ball over and give short fields. The defense being out there forever, which happened many a time, eventually is going to wear down. You're not going to just shut people out. But Miami did full stop have a championship caliber defense, and the defensive players start to resent the offensive players. And, if you see with Jeff Thomas, who stepped away, left the team and program and everything, and said, dude, I don't want to be around this. You guys want to discipline me for whatever, but, people are doing the wrong thing and we're not scoring points and we're not having fun and we're not doing all these different kind of things. So I don't necessarily think that Jaden Hazelwood is off base. But then again, I'm also not going to take the word of an 18-year-old blindly and implicitly. There are layers to the onion. There are different points and pieces to the scenario. But that was his view of it. And I believe that he is validated to feel that and think that and say that. And if that's his truth, he's speaking his truth. And hopefully that other people, might see it differently. Jeremiah Payton, an All-American 4-star wide receiver recruit from Jacksonville, he said, yeah, I don't feel that way. And he was locked in with Miami. Payton was. He signed with Miami. He's going to be an early enrollee. So, it takes all kinds. Some of you guys like bananas. I ate too many bananas as a baby, so I don't eat anything banana flavored anymore at all. I don't do it. And that's okay. So Jaden Hazelwood, I wish him the best. I do not wish anything ill upon him. And if that, again, was his truth, then he is validated to feel that way and do that and be that and say that. And, go with God, vaya con Dios, and be fine out there in Oklahoma. We're going to focus on the Miami Hurricanes over here and move forward.
Cameron says Shaq would lay the wood in practice, and he was afraid of that.
I mean, look, you got wide receivers coming over the middle. You get big 55. You know, you're running a drag route, and they're playing, cover 2 zone, and you're running into that spot. 55 might make you feel that, but I mean, hey, it is what it is. And like I said, obviously, would I have liked to have the number 1 wide receiver, number 3 overall recruit in America this cycle to come to Miami? Absolutely. He did not. He had strong feelings about the Miami program, especially the offense and the lack of spirit that those gentlemen showed. And again, he's fine with that. And I wish him well, and I will watch him from afar. But I'm going to focus on the Miami Hurricanes, and hopefully we're going to get things going right in Coral Gables and at Hard Rock Stadium and all the places that the Canes travel in the 2019 season and beyond.
Fred Langston says, great show, guys. Thank you so much, Fred.
Appreciate it.
State of the U, check it out. If you have yet to catch Miami football coverage there, you hear it from Cam right here. So obviously, by extension, you should check out State of the U because he's able to pontificate even more by the written word. If you love college football, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, we continue to explode. Thank you so much for your support and help in that. Share the videos as well. You're going to see the individual segments over at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And of course, we'll continue to do the live shows right here. Cam, we appreciate you spending so much time with us tonight, man.
Yeah, man. Like I said, especially after yesterday's action and everything, and all of the offensive hires basically happened, or a couple of them happened in between the last time that I was here and now. So figured I would give you guys that. And I was just a little bit motivated and, lubricated with my Underwood Wine Company wine and everything. But no, I mean, it's good to talk to you guys. And, just like Mark says, I mean, I'm active on Twitter all the time. At the State of the U or at Underwood Sports. I have 2 different accounts. Please follow either or both, but maybe the State of the U one, because I think we're cresting over 31,000 followers right now. Facebook.com/the State of the U. Follow that. And so when you read those tweets, you can read them in my voice. When you read my articles that I write, you can read them in my voice. But it's not just my voice, the State of the U. We have a vast and diverse contributing group, and we have great contributors. And I don't say that just because I write for State of the U. I honestly love reading what everybody writes every single day. Whether it's Marshall Thomas, whether it's Dylan Sherry, Matt Washington, Justin DeTavio, John Camera. I'm missing so many guys because we have so many different contributors. Amy Grunledger, she hops in with some great stuff. Craig T. Smith, John Reynolds doing football and baseball commentary. We have so many great guys and gals, at State of the U. We really do care about the U, and we care about what we bring you guys. So please, if you're supporting this, go over to State of the U. Check out what we have for you. We have a variety of content. Please come fan with us at State of the U. We'd love to hear back from you, and really appreciate your support moving forward.
Wholesome One, we see you. Good to see you in the live chat as well. And everybody that mentioned that they subscribed tonight, thank you so much for your support. You won't be disappointed. We discuss, debate, and analyze college football like nobody else right here, talking nothing but Canes right here at this channel. And again, if you love college football across the board, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, please join me there as well. Cam, thanks for stopping by. It's always a great conversation.
Yeah, man. Like I said, it was a great time. Thanks for having me, and I'll talk to you guys soon.